and welcome to this edition of Balance in Life. I am Crystal Tyler Mackey, happy to welcome you on behalf of the Virginia Cooperative Extension Human Development Program team and our partners in this series, North Carolina Cooperative Extension. My co-hosts Bethany Eigel and Herman Macklin and I are here, and hopefully you will glean as much as we will and have from this first session with Alan Rasmussen. I am going to quickly move so that Alan can share some really useful strategies and pieces of information around how we can help our family and friends who are in distress and share some specific things around suicide. And so, Alan, I'm going to move out of the way quickly. I want you to jump right in. I know there's a lot to cover. And so if you'd like to engage in the chat, please feel free to do so. Thanks, Alan. I'm kicking it over to you.
All right. I appreciate that, Crystal. And I'm telling you, I'm ready to go today. I'm excited to be here with everybody. And I know this is an important topic for us to talk about. And I appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you all to do so. And just briefly, as we get started, I don't like to spend a lot of time talk about me, but I think because of this topic, it's important to know that I've been working for Rappahannock Rapidan Community Services as a prevention specialist since 2003. And since that time, the focus of my work has been on suicide prevention. I've trained over 40,000 youth and adults to be suicide prevention gatekeepers. And I am a mental health first aid certified trainer, an ACE master trainer, and a certified suicide prevention gatekeeper training. So, one of the most important actions a community can take to address suicide is to train community members to be what are called community gatekeepers, people who are in a position to recognize the warning signs and clues of suicide and connect someone they may talk to or know to appropriate services and support. And so, the key here is that when people are trained, they feel comfortable and confident in approaching someone who may be in distress, someone who may be thinking of suicide, and otherwise, sometimes people feel uncomfortable doing that. So, this training is critical to help getting people involved and potentially be in a position to save a life. And I want you to know this I know this works. I'm not here just doing a training and coming in and then leaving. I use it. I know people I have trained who have used it. And I have story on story where people have gotten involved because they've been trained and actually helped someone in distress and actually saved a life. Now, be aware that in the United States, we've lost in 2019 47,511 people to suicide. Now, that's unacceptable. And I know when you hear that number that way, sometimes you can hear it and you go, okay, that's a big number. But what really gets to me is when I put it this way: if you do the division, you'll see that we are losing on average 130 people a day in this country to suicide. That is unacceptable. And suicide is a community issue that needs community solutions. We can make a difference if we're trained. So today, in the time I have, I'm going to talk to you about how we can recognize and help family and friends in distress and potentially save a life. We're going to talk about warning signs that we can see. Now, keep in mind, this is important to hear. Warning signs are what we see. You know, we can see things, we can see what's going on with people. Symptoms, what someone is experiencing, you have to get involved and talk to them to see what their symptoms are. So that this is a two-step process. Recognize signs, think about what's possible. And my experience is anything's possible. So I'm going to explore what I see to see what the symptoms are. And that's what this training is about. Now, I think it's important to say this too. Sometimes people think that mental illness is the cause of suicide. They go, hey, that person must be depressed or experiencing a mental illness, and that's why they did that. And I can tell you, 90% of the time, people who try to take their life or do, they suffer from a mental illness. So we need to be alert to that. But please keep in mind that there are other contributing factors that have been identified in studies that contribute to people taking that step to take their life. And I'm talking about relationship problems, employment, finances, physical health, legal issues, a number of contributing factors that are out there. So we need to be alert to all these. And I'm gonna include that in my training here. So I'm gonna let me get started here. Let me make sure I can make this. There we go. I want to talk about these suicide clues and warning signs. And keep in mind, the more clues and signs you observe, the greater the risk. But I always caution people, please take all signs seriously. You may not see all the signs. This person may be showing you one sign and there may be many others. So anytime you see a sign, let your mind say, hey, what's possible? Let me check it out. We'll see what's probable. We'll see if there's any symptoms. So some risk factors I want to talk about. Risk factors for suicide. The biggest risk factor there is when someone has tried to take their life in the past, a previous suicide attempt, they're 38 times more likely to try that again if they're not getting appropriate help. So that's the biggest risk factor there is. If someone's talking about suicide, please take that seriously. I've done this presentation over and over, and I actually have a story for every piece of this presentation. And sometimes people hear someone talking about suicide and they ignore it or say, hey, you don't want to talk like that. That needs to be explored. If someone has an organized plan, they know how they're going to do it, when they're going to do it, that increases the risk big time. Those that are preoccupied with death and dying, that can be, they may be thinking about it. They may listen to music about it. They may read a lot about it, write about it, or journal about it, research it on Google. That should pique your interest. And I did mention about mental illnesses, but a risk factor for suicide is depression or other mental illnesses. Now, we don't want to stigmatize mental illnesses, but remember that 90% rule. 90% who try or do take their life suffer from a mental illness, but not all people who are depressed and suffer from a mental illness have thoughts of suicide. You won't know if you don't ask. So I've gotten over that hump. I'll talk to anybody about anything and put it on the table. So alcohol and or drug use, substance use, that is a contributing factor. Sometimes people self-medicate. When I'm talking about adults, I look for situations where maybe someone is overusing alcohol or maybe drugs, and it's affecting their moods, their behaviors, and their interactions, their life, so that gets on the level of being a disorder. Someone who, if we know someone who's tried to take their life or actually did take their life, keep in mind it can affect people deeply. This suicide loss is a unique grief that people experience. And I actually facilitate a Survivors for Life support group in the Culpeper area for those that have lost a loved one to suicide. And because I know, and we know in the community, that when someone loses a family member or friend, it can lead them to have thoughts of suicide themselves. So we need to be alert to that and always get people help who have lost a family member or a friend or are impacted by suicide loss in the community. Victims of physical or sexual abuse, 30 times more likely to become depressed and have thoughts of suicide than someone who has not been physically or sexually abused. Major risk factor. Victims of assault or bullying And I can tell you right now, from my years of work in schools, the number one reason that young people come up to me after talk and say, "Hey, I'm depressed," and or "I'm depressed and having thoughts of suicide," they'll tell me, "Hey, I'm being bullied." So it is a major issue in schools that needs to be addressed. Sometimes people make direct statements. And, again, here's one of these stories. I have a story for every one of these statements where someone heard it and ignored it. And we need to take these statements seriously and explore them. But don't make direct statements about what they intend to do, what they're feeling. "Hey, I've decided to kill myself. I wish I were dead. I'm going to commit suicide. I'm going to end it all." Or this is the conditional statement: "If such and such, whatever that is, doesn't happen." They want it to happen very badly. "If it does not happen, I will kill myself." Now you can flip that around too and say, "Hey, if such and such does," they don't want it to happen. "If that does happen, I'll kill myself." We need to explore that. Sometimes people will make indirect or coded verbal clues. And we just need to be alert and hear the distress in statements like, "Hey, I'm tired of life. I just can't go on. My family would be better off without me. Who cares if I'm dead anyway? I just want out. I won't be around much longer, or pretty soon you won't have to worry about me." Some behavioral clues, some behaviors that could be a warning sign. People who take unnecessary risks. They're reckless. They're impulsive. I don't mind saying, when I first started this work, I always wondered about that statement. And I had a student one year come to me in the 9th grade and said, "Mr. Rasmussen, that's me." And I thought, I'm going to get a free education here. I'm going to be able to use what the student tells me, because I'm not sure I've got a good example. And what he told me, he flat out said, "I don't want to live, but I don't have the guts to kill myself." And he said, "What I do is I go out and do crazy, dangerous, reckless things. And if something happens to me, so what?" So if you see behavior like that, let it pique your interest and explore what you're seeing. Unexplained anger, aggression, irritability, anxiety. We most of us probably don't like being around angry people or aggressive people or irritable people or worriers. But those are all symptoms of depression. Me, I like to go to somebody, and like I say, I'm a put it on the table kind of guy. "Hey, you're angry. What do you mean I'm angry?" Well, that's what I'm talking about right there, and then what I find is they don't even know they're like that, because whatever's going on has overwhelmed them, and they're giving off these feelings and stuff through their behaviors and statements, and they don't even know what's going on. And when you tell them, they get worked up and they go, "Oh my gosh." So then you get a chance to help them. Dramatic changes in behavior or mood: happy one day, sad the next. I mean, the moods are all over. I like to check that out. Feelings of sadness, maybe crying for no apparent reason. You can throw in feelings of uselessness, worthlessness. I've had people say, "Hey, I feel like I have no value." And those are all dangerous statements, man, because they don't feel connected to people. They don't feel like there's any purpose for them on the earth. I've heard them talk like that. And, so we need to explore, what people are feeling. What's going on? What are you experiencing? Self-destructive acts. When you talk about self-injury, I'm talking about cutting, picking, hair pulling, lip biting. Anytime someone causes themselves physical pain with the purpose of calming down some internal psychological distress they're having, that's self-injury. And what people tell me is they've actually found a way to stay alive. "I do this stuff, it makes me feel better." But the fact is, you can develop a tolerance for that. It's not the appropriate way to get the help you need. So if that's going on, and they a lot of times they conceal it. They conceal it. And so we do want to try to get appropriate help for individuals experiencing that psychological distress. You know, perfectionism, or this pressure to succeed or achieve. I've got to be in this relationship. I got to make this amount of money. I have to have that job. I have to be whatever it is. You know, they don't see the gray areas in life. So, you know, and I've seen actually where this has led people to say, hey, if I'm not in this relationship or if I don't have this going on, I don't want to live. And that's a dangerous place to be. So we need to be alert to that. And it, you know, another one thing I like to talk about is sometimes people feel like they fail at something. You know, I always like to failure is feedback. It's just telling you what you need to improve on, what you can work on. Let's look at it like that and not saying, hey, I'm a complete failure, I'm of no value, and take it to that level. Seeking access to the means. What am I saying here? You know, to take if I want to take my life, I have to have a way to do it. So, you know, how do people do that? The main way is firearm. They can take pills or they can hang themselves. And so there's not that there's not other ways, but those are the main ways. So, you know, be alert if someone's talking about getting a gun, they seem depressed. If they're stockpiling medications and you find that, or they've got ropes or stuff around, you know, be alert to what you see and explore it. And look, I do this in talks, I do it in schools. And I've had situations where students come forward and say, hey, I'm aware somebody was trying to get a gun. They're not getting along with their family. Appreciate you telling me that information. We'll check it out. So all this means something. Giving away prized possessions, getting their affairs in order, saying their goodbyes. I've seen all of it. Situational clues. Family problems can be a big one for young people, a big one for adults. You know, there's fighting, maybe there's relationship issues there. They're talking about divorce, and that affects them, the adults, it affects the kids, and it can make people depressed. Loss of any major relationship. You know, I've seen it with a loss of a family member, a parent, a child. I've seen it with the loss of a pet. You know, so we need to be alert to how that loss affects other people. We never want to come in and say, hey, you'll get over it. It's always, you know, what are you feeling? What are you experiencing? We'll talk about that in a minute. But diagnosis of a serious or terminal illness, I like to put in physical disabilities there. You know, when people have physical disabilities, it can be tough, and we need to be alert to how they're feeling, what they're experiencing. When people have a terminal illness, you know, I've been there with some family. We need to talk about them. What are you experiencing? What can I do to help you? What do you need? And you know, be there. So, financial problems that can be either their own or within the family. You know, it can wear people out. These money issues, it can grind you down. Sudden loss of freedom, a fear of punishment. Now, look, I used to do probation and parole work. You know, one example I saw there is if somebody was getting ready to go to jail or might be confined, they'd go, hey, I can't do that. And, you know, young people going into the criminal justice system or court, they think, hey, I'm be taking away my family. I've seen kids that are, they get in trouble at school. They're afraid to go home. They don't know what's going to happen. And it can lead to some feelings of depression and hopelessness. Feelings of being trapped. Feelings like there's no way out. And it's usually something you don't enjoy. That's really, to me, that definition of hopelessness. I'm in this situation. I absolutely see no way out. And that's where those thoughts of suicide can creep in. Wait a minute, maybe there is a way out of this pain I'm in. And they start to think about that. So we need to keep in mind, emotional distress puts blinders on people. They can't see clearly. They need someone there to get involved and say, hey, wait a minute, there's another option. So some other clues that you might see, those that withdraw from family, friends, social activities, you know, they stop hanging around family, going to doing things they enjoy, playing sports, whatever. They just kind of isolate, withdraw. And a recent disappointment or rejection. I've seen this. Somebody wants something. There's a thing. I want this so bad. If it doesn't happen, you know, and when it doesn't, it can be devastating, especially if it happens repetitively. So we need to be alert to how that disappointment or rejection affects that person. Physical symptoms, eating disturbances, eating too much, eating too little, changes in sleep patterns, sleeping too much, can't get to sleep at all, chronic headaches, stomach problems, neglect of their physical appearance. They don't care about their hygiene, maybe don't bathe, their clothing, whatever. And so, one thing it's important to say with clues and signs, sometimes you may go to somebody and say, hey, what's going on here? Well, and there's nothing going on. It's just the way it is. I mean, but they're maybe feeling a little bad, or maybe they're not thinking of suicide. So that none of this absolutely means someone's thinking about suicide, but you don't know if you don't check it out. If we take the approach that nothing's going on there, we're going to miss something. I always like to get involved and talk and learn and engage. Don't be afraid to do that. You're not going to offend anybody by asking questions, showing that you care and want to get involved. Usually you'll make a friend. So increased apathy, that displaying of hopelessness, apathy is things like, hey, I don't care. So what? Big deal. Doesn't matter to me. And that's a hop, skip, and a jump to that feeling of hopelessness. Nothing seems to matter. An inability to concentrate or make decisions. You can see that change. Hey, someone's confused. They used to be able to think clearly, make decisions. What's going on here? So you can explore that. And, helpful things, I'm going to say this. You're at the point now where you've seen some of the signs, things you can check out. And sometimes for people, it's a big step to go, okay, I'm going to get involved and see what's going on. So I always like this list of helpful things to say to kind of open that door to get involved and start the communication. So things you can say to somebody are, hey, I'm concerned about you. I never say I'm worried about you. That's that hand wringing stuff. I'm concerned about you. What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? I love those two there. I always tell people, hey, I see this. I just I care about you. I'm concerned about you. What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? Great way to get in. How long have you been feeling like this? I can see that you are distressed. I want to help. Something seems to be bothering you. Do you want to talk about it? I care. I will listen and try to understand. It takes some energy and concentration to fully understand what's going on with somebody. So all we can say is, look, I'm going to try to understand and help. Remember, those considering suicide will likely respond positively to sincere interest from somebody, concern, and active listening. Someone who will listen and understand what's going on and reflect back, they will connect with that typically. So, a piece of this too is if you're interacting with somebody and, they're in a lot of distress and you can see it, I'm in there talking, I got to ask the question. I'm telling you, you have to put the question on the table just to make sure they're safe. And so ask the suicide question. So sometimes this is a difficult step for people. There's this misconception, hey, if I use a word, it might somehow cause it to happen. That's the biggest myth there is. You talk about it, it's the one thing that can prevent it. It does not make it happen by talking about it. So don't have that fear. If the word suicide's crossed your mind about someone who seems depressed, it has probably crossed their mind also. Get involved, ask the question. So ways you can ask that, sometimes keep in mind, people who are in this situation, there's this pain and desperation kind of swirling around the side of them like that pressure cooker. And, no one's come along and said, hey, what are you experiencing? What's going on? You having thoughts of suicide? And so, what I find is all you need to do is be empathetic, listen, and care, like I said, and you'll open up and let them calm down and get the help they need. So how do you ask this question? Ask directly. Don't beat around the bush. Look them in the eyes and ask directly whether the person is suicidal by saying, are you having thoughts of suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? I want you to know that I've done this over and over, and I've done it with sixth graders and up. They understand it doesn't work anybody up. It gets their attention, and it doesn't do anything but open doors. So if yes is the answer to any question, then you need to ask whether the person has a plan. Have you decided how you are going to kill yourself? Have you decided when you would do it? Do you have what you need to carry out your plan? Now, keep in mind, the more organized the plan, the greater the risk. And so this is why it's important to ask this, because you might say, well, no, I haven't really thought about how I'm going to do it versus, yes, I know exactly and when and that kind of thing. So, that gives you key information. So here's some actions that you can take to help your family and friends who are in distress. I like this action stuff. So listen to the person, give him or her your full attention. Be calm and non-judgmental. Avoid saying, hey, you don't want to think like that. You don't want to do that. They're already thinking about it. You need to take it, it's where you are here and now that's important. So take it where it is and work with that. Don't judge it. Always offer hope, and that's easy to say. So I like to put it into action where it's like, let them know, hey, there's help. We can get you help. There's all other alternatives than suicide for what you've got going on. There are other resources that are available. And I want to say this, you don't have to have all the answers. All you have to say is there's help, there's alternatives, there's resources available. We can work together and find them. I know community partners. I know people we can call. You don't have to have all the answers. So don't put that pressure on you. And I'm going to tell you, I've been there myself. It's at one point or another said, hey, I'm not sure I got all the answers, but I'm going to find them. I'll tell you that right now. I know people. Remember, suicide is not the problem. It's the perceived solution to ending this person's pain. And we just need to let them know that there are other options. There are other solutions than suicide. Okay? Persistent statements that a better alternative can be found for your problems. I like the if I know it, I don't mind it, and I think it's important to say, hey, let me make sure I understand the reasons why you want to die. Don't avoid that. Let me make sure I understand clearly, because if I know that, and I can say, oh, you're having relationships problems, what if we can get you help for that? Remember, those blinders are on. They're not thinking like that. So you go, what if we can get you help? What if we can help you with your money problems? What if we can help you with employment? What if we can help you with this or that? And their mind isn't geared toward that. They're in that hopeless state. And you give them that hope and its support, it can move them to the life side of what's going on. They can see maybe, hey, maybe I can live and handle this. Maybe there are options. Focus on solutions to problems and encourage problem solving. Accept that this person's pain is real, because it is, but keep offering alternatives. And remember, intense emotional distress can blind people to alternative solutions and available resources. So we need to be there and keep reminding them that there is other options. So, and I'm almost done. If you're getting concerned about the time, Crystal, I don't want to get you worked up, or Bethany. So certain intense emotional or affective states may suggest a suicide crisis in those who suffer from depression. This is what could alert me to that. Not only are they thinking about it, they are in a state of mind that they may do it. That's a question I get all the time. So when you see intense desperation, extreme hopelessness. Rage is a big one, the highest form of anger. You know, they're not, when you're in rage, you don't think, man, you just act. When there's feelings of abandonment, I'm alone, I have nobody, no support. Self-hatred, you know, I hate myself so bad, I should be dead. Anxiety, and I mean extreme anxiety, where they can't even look up or think clearly. You know, these are all states that may suggest that a suicide crisis is imminent. So, how do you connect friends and family to resources and support? You know, I've been in this position before when I've done this presentation, and I could talk about, hey, locally check this, locally check that, because there are community services boards. I'm in an area where we address this stuff. But when I talk on a broad level like this, I always talk about the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You know, it's an easy number to call to get a response, and they know, if you tell them where you are, they know what's in the area, what resources there are, so they're an immediate way to get help and go from there. Now, I always also say too, in cases of emergency, where it looks like if someone's not talking to you, they've taken off, you think, hey, I fear that they may do something to take their life. Call 911. We have a lot of law enforcement people that are trained, and they can get involved. They can do wellness checks. And, I believe in law enforcement, and I've seen them get involved and save lives, no doubt. So, with that said, I know my time is up, but when you help family and friends in distress, remember, you can save a life. When you follow these steps, check things out, talk to people, open doors, open them up, you might be saving a life. You're definitely going to help somebody. So, with that said, I'm open. I'm going to turn it back to Crystal and Bethany, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Alan. Wow. I mean, it's a serious topic to talk about today, but to your point, put it on the table and have the conversation. Right? The conversation doesn't spark someone to go do or consider suicide that hadn't already been considering it. It brings to light and then provides an opportunity to do something, right?
Yes.
To act upon.
This is a presentation of hope. It really is. These actions save lives, and that's what it's about, Crystal. I appreciate it. It is a serious topic, and we need to get involved. It's a community issue.
Yes. It is a community issue. So speaking of, we did receive a question, and I would venture to say there are more of us that have this question that didn't raise it. But one of the questions came up about, how do, on the other end, if someone has died by suicide, those in the family and friend and neighbor circle, how do they process that trauma and grief?
Well, I can answer that. And I will tell you right now, in the work I do suicide prevention, I do suicide intervention, and I do what's called suicide postvention. After there's been a loss in the community to suicide, I try to find the family. I try to talk to them. I try to let them know that there's help. And I also facilitate a Survivors for Life support group for a community coalition locally that's called Team Jordan. And Team Jordan was formed by the chief of police in the town of Culpeper and his family, who lost their son to suicide. And one of their main goals is to support those who have lost a loved one to suicide. It's a unique grief. You don't want to have them go just to a general grief group, because suicide loss is a unique loss and grief, and it needs its own support group and people who understand that dynamic. And often, look, I mentioned it in my talk, but when people lose a loved one to suicide, it can make them depressed enough where they too have thoughts of suicide. So we need to be there, and that's why this area, we like to work with those that have experienced suicide loss, let them know there's help, there's support. You know, with this community coalition, we also find funds to help get them counseling or connect them with services when they need it. So definitely an issue to address.
Thank you.
One last thing, be alert. You may use the same stuff that we just talked about when you're talking with them. Hey, look, I know you're in distress. What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? I want to help you. Open that door.
Yeah, because I noticed one of the first risk factors that you listed was experiencing a loss by suicide to from someone else, another loved one. That's a risk factor for people as well.
Yes, and I'm going to say this: I've seen it where people gets worked up enough when there's in the community where there's a number of suicides, and they know the people generally or feel connected to the community, it affects them that way too. So we need to be alert community wide how these losses affect not just individuals, but the community at large.
For sure. I know we're closing in. We've surpassed time, but it's so important and so critical. One of the things that we Alan and Bethany and I talked about before we got on was Alan has offered to come do a longer 90-minute session, not on Balance in Life. We'll schedule a date that's not at this time. For those who have interest in a longer, more in-depth gatekeeper training, that Alan is one of the individuals who does that training. I did post in the chat. Alan mentioned working with law enforcement. I posted a recent article from an incident that happened on Sunday in Alan's area where law enforcement, Alan, I don't know if you want to share a little bit more about the situation, but Alan trained the law enforcement officers who intervened in this potential suicide attempt through the gatekeeper training that we're going to offer. So Alan, do you want to share anything more about that?
Yeah, I would. And I don't want to take responsibility. I do some
Sure.
training for our CIT program that is run by our community services board. I do my gatekeeper piece. I talk about some de-escalation. They have other trainings in there. And the key here is what happened last Sunday, and you can look at the article, the Culpeper Town PD responded to some calls about someone who was suicidal. And this individual was actually climbing up the Verizon cell tower to jump. And this is how being trained and then having law enforcement that are trained through CIT, they got involved, went up the cell tower, used their skills for engaging and talking to someone who's in distress like this, and were able to calm this person down, give them hope, and get them off the tower and save a life. So that's one level it can work at. And beside that kind of a situation, what's beautiful about the information you're getting today, what a great time to get involved with somebody when they're in distress before they're thinking about suicide. That's prevention work. Or if you talk to them and they're having thoughts of suicide, but they haven't yet formalized a plan, we can get into this process, this journey early, and this stuff works any place in it. But for us as community gatekeepers, when they're in distress, we do prevention. When they're having thoughts before they're ready to act is a great time to get involved and get them help and save a life.
Thank you, Alan. So I just want to, I'll share out the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. We posted that in the chat. It's also here. There are some other resources that are here. We'll send those out when we send the link and the slides. There are two other lines. If it's earlier on, as Alan mentioned, there's a warm line in Virginia, a hope line in North Carolina. I know there may be a couple of you that are outside of those two states, but those are primarily where people are joining in from. So to have access to those resources, so just keep them on hand with you. as we journey out of this session, Alan, thank you for leading us through this conversation. I appreciate the framing that this is a hope. If there's someone that's already at a place of looking for and seeking hope, is there an opportunity for us to extend, some hope, to show some hope? So, Bethany, any closing thoughts from you?
Just don't be afraid to talk about it. I like that point a lot. It's not going to cause anything. It's going to maybe help. So great points and great conversation, Alan. Thank you. Much needed.
Well, I want to thank you for hosting this and for everyone being here, because like I said, it's a community issue. It needs community solutions. And I feel great that you all are here taking an interest in this. And I feel confident you're going to use it and maybe save a life.
Absolutely agreed. So thanks. The more of us that are open and talking and listening and sharing some compassion, some empathy, I think the better we all are. So yeah, so someone may intervene in the moment, but then is there community support around to keep that hope going? So thank you all for being here, everyone. Have a great weekend. We hope to see you next week, same time, same place, different topic. We are really lifting up some things around mental health, as May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we'll have a heavier lens on that, just to articulate those things for the month. So